So I've been getting a lot of questions about like my build and shit for what I did in the CDL. So I figured I would just try to make a quick video about what I did in the group stage and what I tried to do in the bracket stage. Strategies I used for different classes and like my itemization and talents. Hopefully it's pretty quick. Alright, so this was my talent spec for the group stages for like those 2 round robins. It's pretty straightforward. Holy Tree, 31 points in it. The one interesting thing here that you have to work with is when you're putting points in. At this point, like all of these are pretty straightforward. Land Hands is amazing. This is amazing for PvP. You need this for knockback resist so that you can do concentration or and have full resist. So derpy. Divine Intellect just to give you a bigger mana pool. Illumination is godlike because it gives you mana back when you use Divine Favor. So like during those fights on a 2-minute cooldown, I would just get like a 2.7 to 3k heal off, and I would get full mana back for it. I don't worry about Improved Blessing of Wisdom. This is sick for the armor, and just for that cooldown, it was really big for... In World PvP, this is big, so it's a third off the cooldown of Land Hands. And in those CDL matches, there's like... The time between matches, it kind of worked out that I would like get to do a couple Land Hands. Came in clutch once or twice. So here you want Holy Power, but you only have 24 points, you need 25, so you have 1 left to spend. I think the best move is Lasting Judgment. Putting, for the fights like Priest and Warlock and maybe Druid or Hunter, that extra 10 seconds is huge, because normally the base time for Judgment of Wisdom and Light is 10 seconds. So you move it to 20, and it seems like it's not a big deal, but it pretty much means that like it's never going to fall off. Whereas if you get feared or you hodge them and want to heal, or they like gap close and get away, they can normally get away for like 10 seconds, but 20 is kind of a big difference. Then you get 5% crit, it's good for everything, and you get Holy Shock, which is huge. You can heal yourself, you can damage the enemy, 30-second cooldown, no cast time. It's a lot of mana invested, but it's pretty sick. It's got a 20-yard range, which is huge too when you think about that your strategy is often to poke at people and to keep people in combat, whereas if you didn't have this, you'd have to use grenades or the 10-yard judgment. And then I used Retribution for the group stage as my second spec for Seal of Command. I didn't really care about Improved Blessing of Might. It might have helped me a little bit in some matchups, but I like to sustain from this little mana cost reduction. Improved Judgment I think is pretty terrible unless you're doing like a spell power heavy build, which I was. So those 2 seconds off from the 10 is kind of a nice touch. Lets you just do more DPS. Parry is good because I had planned, this is like a good 2-handed build. You can do it with a 1-hander and shield because it just helps in most matchups. But parry is huge for 2-handed paladin. So is conviction. I put 3 in here. If you're using a 2-hander, every time you parry, your next attack comes out faster, which gives you more DPS. It gives you more Seal of Command uptime and shit. Seal of Command is huge. It is good because it does the same base damage as Seal of Righteousness. It's based on proc per minute, not fixed proc. So when you have a slow 2-hander, it does way more damage. It scales every time the seal procs. It scales 50% of your spell power. It's like 20% from your spell damage and 30 or 29% from your holy's damage, which is like almost always the same thing. So that's pretty big for spell power. The seal or the judgment is like 43% spell power scaling versus righteousness is 50%, so you lose a little there. But being able to stun people, especially when you're spamming grenades, and then combo that into the double damage from the judgment on a stunned or incapacitated target is pretty nice for your burst. And then conviction for 5% crit. This is nice with Seal of Command because Seal or Judgment of Command works on your melee crit instead of your spell crit. After that, let me see when I have to actually put points into these guys. Alright, so you're at this point and you have 15 into the tree. Or where is it? So here. You want this because each point of this is equivalent to 20 agility, which is pretty massive if you think about what you're getting from these other talents. Vindication is sick because it procs pretty often, especially if you're using a slow 2-hander, versus like Warrior, Rogue, and Hunter. 10% of their strength and agility is like -20 or -30 maybe, which is kind of huge. And then versus a lot of like purge matchups and cleanse matchups, this just is like a free debuff that they have to get through to wipe your like wisdom and other bullshit that you're throwing on them. And then eye for an eye is the other big thing here. So boom. Now if I'm fighting a caster, they crit me for like 1k. They're taking 300 damage for free, which is pretty nice for 2 talent points. So that's the build. Then the playstyle is like, especially in world PvP and battleground PvP, you can just heal in the background. When someone jumps on you, you turn on them, you equip you seal of command. You want to do a stun, you do like whatever the fuck it's called, hammer of justice on them, shock them. As soon as you swing with seal of command up, as soon as the swing goes off, you switch to your two-hander, because it'll take the first one-hand hit, and then if you proc a seal of command, you swing again and it uses the two-hander seal of command. So you can get big damage there. And then you judge the seal for extra damage. You can drop a consecrate for extra damage. At that point, sometimes they're like dead. Honestly, if you get a big seal proc, you could do like a divine favor into the holy shock. And then after you do that weapon swap, they're still stunned long enough for you to do a second attack with your two-hander. And from there, maybe you do finish them with like a fucking righteous hammer. I don't know, the big hammer, you know, that kills people through your execute move. And it's good for duels because you have all this sustain over here. You can kite people around, and this helps a lot for the cloth matchups where like you can just run up on them and start destroying their shit. They are kind of scared to hit you. You have a little bit for fighting physical because you have this parry and this vindication thing going on. But halfway through I swapped to a different spec, and I'll talk about that in a sec. This was the gear I used for the group stages. I had the Unstoppable Force. I also had the Locomir and a couple of different shields. I juggled through, oh, this is going to be weird itemization, but I juggled through, I didn't use Red Dragon Scale Protector, but that's BIS for like Battleground PvP and World PvP because the healing is just better than what I used a lot, which is Malisters, because it just gives more armor, more stam, and better sustain with the MP5. I also used Earthen Guard for Warrior, and I would kind of use this versus Rogue too, or like you can use the ZG shield or any of the MC Blackwing Layer shields if you're lucky enough to get those guys. But this dude is good just because high block, high stamina, especially with the second spec that I show you. But anyway, I use that. I have rank 10. I would use, if I was rank 13, I would definitely use 3-piece rank 13 gear because that's BIS, but I only had rank 10. And I think someone talked to me about it and did the math, and it's like if you have Judgment and you have PvP tier 1, these are the best 2 pieces to use for the trade-offs versus tier 2. You want to use the 2 pieces so that you get that set bonus that gives you 23 more spell damage. They're pretty dope. I ran 5-piece Judgment. If I had all the Judgment, I would run that. I unfortunately didn't. So I ran 5-piece of it to get that huge 47 spell bonus damage. Is massive. I would run like a Judgment Belt if I had it, or like Onslaught Girdle maybe with this, but I had Therazane's Link, which is sick, just like a lot of health, a lot of int, good attack stats. It gives you the crit for command, Judgment Crown, blah blah blah. Alright, so this is where it starts to get weird. You'd think with the spell power build, I didn't really have a good spell power cloak, so I used Dragon's Blood for most matchups, and this is like if I was just out in the world or doing battlegrounds, I might use this, or if I had to do like one itemization for all my duels, I would use this these items that I have here. But if I'm doing battleground PvP, I might opt in more healing gear. You guys will get a feel for it. But this huge stamina, good resist. This guy I use because I didn't have a spell power neck, and it helps seal of command. It's got, I need percent hit, I need percent crit. Stam, the agility turns into percent crit, which is nice for burst damage. And honestly, with this build, you don't really need the crit, but it helps for your melee swings and for your command. But yeah, I don't have Vengeance, so it's not like a huge deal. This is why crit is huge on Paladins when they run it. It turns into 15% bonus to physical and holy damage after you do a crit, which is juicy. So, but here I'm just going for it for damage. So Therazane's crit, Onyxia crit. I had Band of Servitude from ZG, which is nice for spell damage. If I had like a Mind Tier or a Band of Force Concentration, or what the hell's the other one? Like this guy I would run, this guy I would run over it. And there's one more, Elemental Focus Band. I was looking for this. It's like another Band of Servitude equivalent, but these two are the best Mind Tier and Band of Force Concentration just because they give spell crit, they give spell hit, which is nice. But I ran down Julio's just because I had it. It helps with the Seal of Command build, gives me all these physical stats, blah blah For trinkets, I use a ton of different shit. If I had to pick 2 generic trinkets, it would be like Barov's Peasant Collar and PvP Insignia. If I was doing like PvE stuff, I'd do Briarwood Reed for the spell damage and what's it called? I'm not even gonna find it in here, am I? You know, the one, the one from Jesus Christ, what's it called? I can't believe I forgot it. The one that gives you the extra hit and the attack power from Blackrock Depths. So these are my itemization. It went pretty well. If I could do anything, I would do like, you'll see.